Tonight, before we enter the final pages of Genesis, I invite you to take one deep, gentle breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let your thoughts slowly settle. And let your heart become still in the presence of God. Heavenly Father, as we come to you tonight, meet the one listening with quiet peace. Ease every worry they've carried today, and surround them with the warmth of your nearness. Speak to them through the story we're about to hear. Speak through every rise and fall of this chapter, and let your voice be the calm within every storm, the light within every shadow. Lord, for the moments that feel heavy, give rest. For the questions that feel unanswered, give comfort. And for the heart that feels tired, give gentle peace. Tonight, we step into a moment of endings and beginnings. A moment where a family faces grief, reconciliation, and the quiet work of your hand. This is the closing chapter of Genesis, where Jacob's final blessings are spoken, where forgiveness is tested, and where Joseph, after all his journeys, learns once more that your plan is always deeper than pain. As you listen, may your breathing soften, may your spirit rest, and may each word guide you gently toward stillness. Let us begin, with hearts open and with the peace that God is here, even now, even in this quiet moment. As the years passed, the life of Jacob, the father of Israel, slowly drew toward its final chapter. His hair had turned white like desert sand. His hands carried the lines of many journeys, and his voice had softened with the weight of both sorrow and blessing. In his tent, where the warm light of oil lamps flickered against woven walls, Jacob rested quietly on his bed, breathing slow, steady breaths. Word spread through the camp that their father, the one who had wrestled with God, the one who had carried the promise, felt his time on earth was nearing its close. One by one, his sons gathered around him. The same sons who had quarreled, who had carried guilt, who had walked through famine, fear, and forgiveness. And Joseph, the son he once believed lost forever, stood closest to him now, eyes gentle, heart full. Jacob lifted his gaze, slow, deliberate, and the room fell quiet. "My sons," he whispered, "the God who carried me all my life has been faithful, and he will be faithful to you." There was something sacred in that moment, something tender, a stillness that wrapped around the family like a warm covering. Jacob was not afraid. He had seen God's hand in every valley, in every mistake, in every blessing he never deserved, and in every promise fulfilled. Tonight, as you listen, imagine that same gentle peace resting over your own life. The years you've walked, the seasons that shaped you, the moments that brought you joy, and the ones that broke your heart, all of them held by a God who has never once let go. And with that same presence in the room, Jacob called for Joseph to come closer. The blessings were about to begin. Joseph stepped forward slowly, gently guiding his two sons toward their grandfather's bedside. Ephraim, the younger, and Manasseh, the firstborn, though they had grown up in Egypt, surrounded by a world of stone temples and foreign gods. Their hearts were knitted into the story of Israel, the story carried through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's weak eyes lifted, searching, then softening the moment he recognized the boys. Even in his frailty, even in the trembling of his hands, there was warmth, a grandfather's love, and a patriarch's purpose. "Bring them to me," he whispered, "that I may bless them." Joseph guided the boys carefully, placing Manasseh at Jacob's right hand and Ephraim at his left, the natural order of blessing, the expected order. But Jacob, led by a wisdom deeper than sight, crossed his hands. His right hand rested on Ephraim, the younger, while his left hand settled upon Manasseh, the older. Joseph watched, confused, a small furrow forming in his brow. He lightly touched his father's wrist. "Father, this is the younger child. Your right hand belongs on the firstborn." But Jacob did not move his hands. His voice was fragile, yet filled with certainty. "I know, my son, I know." And with his hands still crossed, Jacob began to speak blessing over them. Slow, reverent, each word carried on the breath of a lifetime walked with God. The God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked. The God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day. The angel who has delivered me from all harm. May he bless these boys. Joseph bowed his head, the room falling utterly still around them. "Let my name be upon them," Jacob continued softly, "and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth." It was a moment Joseph did not fully understand, yet he felt its weight, its sacredness, the quiet sense that something eternal was unfolding before him. Jacob saw what Joseph could not, a future shaped not by age or by human order, but by God's choosing. And so, under the warm glow of the lamps, Jacob's crossed hands rested on Ephraim and Manasseh, sealing a blessing that would ripple through generations. A reminder that God's purpose often moves in ways we do not expect, and His favor flows not by tradition, but by divine design. After blessing Ephraim and Manasseh, Jacob's strength grew faint, yet his spirit burned with one final task, a father's last duty, a patriarch's final offering. He asked for all his sons to gather close. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin, the youngest. They stood in a quiet circle around their father's bed, grown men, warriors, shepherds, leaders of tribes. Yet in this moment, simply sons, leaning in to hear the last words of the man who had shaped their lives. Jacob lifted his head, his eyes dim, yet full of an ancient strength. "Gather around me," he whispered, "that I may tell you what shall befall you in the days to come." His words turned first to Reuben, "My firstborn, my might, the beginning of my strength, yet unstable as water, a blessing mixed with truth, a father speaking honestly, lovingly, even in his final breaths." Then Simeon and Levi, bound by violence in their youth, their blessing carrying both warning and mercy. Then Jacob's voice softened as he spoke to Judah. "The scepter shall not depart from you," a prophecy of kings, a line that would one day lead to David and then to Christ himself. One by one, Jacob spoke over each son, words shaped by memory, by pain, by hope, by the hand of God resting on every chapter of their lives. Over Zebulun, he spoke of wide seas. Over Issachar, peaceful lands. Over Dan, justice. Over Gad, victory. Over Asher, abundance. Over Naphtali, freedom. Over Benjamin, fierce courage. And then Jacob turned to Joseph, his eyes warming with love. "Joseph is a fruitful vine, though archers shot at him with hatred. His bow remained steady, for the mighty one of Jacob upheld him." Tears glimmered in Joseph's eyes, not from pain, but from hearing his father speak truth over a life that had survived betrayal, slavery, prison, and loss. These blessings were not merely words. They were threads woven into the future of Israel, spoken by a man who had wrestled with God and lived long enough to see his faithfulness unfold. As Jacob finished, his breathing grew slow, but peace rested upon him like a warm cloak. In this moment, you can almost feel the weight of legacy, the tenderness of a father's final offering, and the gentle truth that what we leave behind often lives longer than we do. When Jacob finished speaking his final blessings, a gentle stillness settled over the room. Not the silence of emptiness, but the quiet of something sacred, complete, fulfilled. His sons remained gathered around his bed, each one holding the weight of the moment in their chest, knowing, though none dared say it aloud, that their father's journey was drawing to its final breath. Jacob leaned back, his frail body sinking into the soft blankets beneath him. He exhaled slowly, a long, steady breath, as though releasing the last of a lifetime filled with struggle, love, mistakes, redemption, and promise. Joseph stepped closer, placing a hand gently on his father's shoulder, not wanting to let go. Not yet. Not after losing him once before, and now facing the ache of losing him again. Jacob turned his head slightly, his fading eyes meeting Joseph's. In that single glance, there was gratitude, pride, blessing, and a peace deeper than words. His lips moved softly, forming one final whisper. God will be with you. And with that, Jacob's eyes closed, his breathing eased, and the spirit of the man who had been named Israel, the man who had wrestled with angels, the man who had loved and loved again, passed gently from this life. The tent fell completely silent. None of the sons spoke. Some lowered their heads. Others covered their faces with their hands. And Joseph, unable to contain his grief, collapsed at his father's side, his tears falling onto Jacob's still hand. It was not the loud grief of despair, but the trembling grief of love, the kind that sits deep, the kind that honors the life of the one who shaped you. Outside, the camp felt the shift in the air. People paused. Animals grew quiet. Even the wind moving across the sand seemed to still, as though creation itself bowed its head in respect. In moments like this, when the final chapter of a life closes, there is a heaviness that enters the heart. Yet there is also a strange, unexpected peace. Because when someone's life has been held by God, their ending is never truly an ending, only a return, only a gentle homecoming. After Jacob's passing, a quiet reverence settled across the land of Goshen. Word spread gently through the households of Israel and through the corridors of Egypt that the great patriarch had breathed his last. But before his final moments, Jacob had spoken one request, one wish that carried the weight of generations. "Do not bury me in Egypt," he had said, "but carry me to the land of my fathers, to the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham and Sarah rest, where Isaac and Rebekah lie, where I buried Leah." Joseph remembered those words clearly, spoken with certainty, spoken with love for the land promised to their people. And so, Joseph prepared to honor his father's request, not as a duty, but as an act of devotion. With Pharaoh's permission, Joseph organized a great procession, a journey unlike anything the land had seen. Egyptian officials, elders, leaders, chariots, and horsemen gathered to accompany the sons of Israel. It was a funeral fit for a king, yet carried out not for royalty of Egypt, but for a shepherd of God. The journey from Egypt to Canaan was long, winding through deserts, past hills and valleys, along old familiar paths Jacob once walked in his youth. Each step felt like a return, like retracing the footsteps of promise unfolding across time. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad, the entire procession paused. There, they held a 7-day mourning period, weeping, remembering, honoring the father of their nation. The sound of lament rose into the air, not violent, but deep and heartfelt, the kind of mourning that springs from love, not despair. Finally, Jacob was carried into the land of Canaan, up to the cave of Machpelah, the resting place of the ancestors. Joseph and his brothers laid their father to rest, placing him beside Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Leah, completing a circle of legacy stretching across generations. And in that quiet cave, in the heart of the promised land, Jacob, the one named Israel, returned to the earth in the very place where God had first spoken promise to his family. Sometimes, honoring someone's final request becomes the way we say goodbye, not just in sorrow, but in love, in gratitude, and in the quiet understanding that their story has shaped ours. After Jacob was laid to rest in the cave of Machpelah, the great procession slowly returned to Egypt. The journey home felt different now, quieter, heavier. The presence of their father no longer guiding their steps. Joseph walked with his brothers, but his heart was wrapped in its own grief, remembering the man who had believed in him, even when the world had not. Yet as the days passed, a shadow began to grow in the hearts of Joseph's brothers, an old fear, one they had buried for years, slowly rose to the surface. What if Joseph holds resentment against us? One whispered in the evening light. What if he was only kind because father was alive? Another murmured. What if he now seeks revenge for what we did? They remembered the pit, the cries they ignored, the caravan of Ishmaelites disappearing into the desert, and the lie they carried back to Jacob. They remembered Joseph's tears, the day he revealed himself to them in Egypt. Tears of love, not anger. But guilt has a way of twisting memories, of planting fear where forgiveness has already been given. So the brothers gathered together, discussing what to do, what to say, how to protect themselves from what they feared Joseph might do. In the end, they decided to send a message to him, one wrapped in caution and sorrow. Before he died, the message read, "Your father commanded us to say to you, please forgive your brothers, the servants of the God of your father, for the sin and the harm they did to you." When Joseph received their message, he did not speak right away. His shoulders trembled, his breath caught, and tears filled his eyes. Not because he felt anger, but because his brothers still did not understand his heart. After everything they had walked through, after every act of mercy he had shown, they still believed revenge lived in him. The brothers approached slowly, bowing before Joseph, their voices low. "We are your servants," they said. Joseph lifted his face, streaked with tears, and for a long moment, he simply looked at them, and in that gaze, the years of betrayal, pain, and separation all met the years of healing, reconciliation, and grace. Sometimes, fear lingers long after forgiveness has been given, because the heart struggles to believe that grace can truly be that deep. Joseph held the message his brothers had sent. The words asking for forgiveness, the words speaking of their father's command, the words trembling with fear that he would seek revenge. As he read their plea, something inside him broke open. He had forgiven them long ago. He had welcomed them, provided for them, restored their family. Yet their hearts still lived beneath the shadow of guilt. Joseph sank to his knees, his shoulders trembling, tears rising faster than he could wipe away. Not tears of anger, but tears of grief that his brothers still believed the past held power over the present. Tears because they did not yet understand the depth of grace God had woven through his life. When his brothers finally entered the room, they found Joseph standing quietly, wiping his face, gathering the strength to speak truth into their fear. They did not bow again. They did not plead. They simply waited, unsure of what his silence meant. Joseph lifted his arm, meeting the gaze of each brother one by one. His voice, when it finally came, was soft, steady, and touched with kindness. Do not be afraid. The room grew still. Joseph stepped closer, his expression gentle, his tears still shimmering on his cheeks. "Am I in the place of God?" he asked quietly. His brothers glanced at one another, uncertain, unable to read what emotion lived behind his words. Joseph took a breath, the kind taken before speaking something that has rested in the heart for years. "You meant evil against me," he said, not with accusation, but with honesty, acknowledging the past without reopening its wounds. But God meant it for good. The words hung in the air, soft, sacred. The truth that had carried Joseph through every valley of his life. To bring about this present blessing, the saving of many lives. His brothers lowered their heads, not in fear, but in awe of the grace Joseph offered so freely. Joseph stepped forward, placing a hand on one brother's shoulder, then another, and another. "So, please, do not be afraid," he whispered. "I will provide for you and for your children." In that moment, the years of guilt that had chained their hearts finally loosened, and Joseph's tears became the final seal of a forgiveness that ran deeper than the pain that once divided them. After the years of famine ended, after his brothers settled with their families, and after peace finally rested upon the house of Israel, Joseph's life entered a season unlike any before. A season of calm, a season of steady days, a season where the storms of his youth felt distant, softened by time, and transformed by the kindness of God. Joseph continued his work in Egypt, overseeing the land with wisdom, guiding the people with gentleness and strength. He was respected by the Egyptians, honored by officials, and loved deeply by his own family. Children ran through the courtyards of Goshen, laughter echoing between tents, the voices of a growing nation carried on the evening wind, and Joseph watched them with quiet joy, often smiling as he remembered the dreams he once had as a boy, dreams that had seemed impossible, far away, even cruel at times, yet now stood fulfilled in ways he could have never imagined. As the years passed, Joseph saw his children grow, and then his grandchildren, generations rising like branches from a strong, rooted vine. The scriptures say he lived to see Ephraim's children to the third generation, and the children of Machir, Manasseh's son, placed upon his knees like little ones cherished by a patient, loving grandfather. Joseph's hands, once bound by chains, now rested gently on the heads of children who knew nothing of hardship, nothing of pits or prison cells, nothing of betrayal. All they knew was the warmth of his presence, the kindness in his voice, the peace that filled the home of Israel. In the stillness of those later years, Joseph often reflected on the path God had carried him through, not with bitterness, but with reverence. He remembered his father's tent, the coat woven in love, the long journey through deserts, the cold darkness of the pit, the lonely nights in Pharaoh's prison, and the moment everything changed when purpose stepped out from behind pain. Yet now, in this gentle season, Joseph found rest. Rest in family. Rest in peace. Rest in the quiet knowledge that God had been faithful, not in something, but in all things. And as the sun set on each passing year, Joseph walked with a heart grateful for every blessing, every breath, and every moment of the life God had shaped with unwavering love. As the peaceful years continued to pass, Joseph grew old, his hair silvered, his steps slowed, yet his spirit remained steady, anchored in the God who had carried him through every season of his life, even in his age. Joseph was surrounded by family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, generations who had grown strong in the land of Egypt, generations who knew the goodness of God through his story. But Joseph also knew something else, something deeper, something time had not erased. Egypt, though generous, was not their home. The promise still belonged to Canaan, to the land sworn to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph, even after all the blessings of Egypt, still held that promise close to his heart. As his strength began to fade, Joseph called for the sons of Israel, leaders of families, young and old. those who would carry Israel's story into the next generation. They gathered around his bed, just as they once did for Jacob, listening, watching, knowing the moment was sacred. Joseph took a slow breath, his voice soft, yet filled with certainty. "I am about to die," he said gently, "but God will surely come to your aid." The room fell completely still. Every heart leaned in, hanging on each word. "He will bring you up, out of this land, to the land he promised on oath, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Joseph's eyes glimmered, not with fear, but with hope. Hope rooted in a promise older than his lifetime, a promise woven through every generation, a promise stronger than any empire. "When God comes to your aid," Joseph continued, "swear to me that you will carry my bones with you when you leave this place." His family nodded, some with tears forming, understanding the weight of what he asked. Joseph did not want his story to remain in Egypt. He wanted to rest in the land of promise, the land his father dreamed of, the land God had sworn would be theirs. And so, surrounded by those he loved, Joseph gave Israel one final word, a word that would echo far beyond his lifetime. "God will surely come to your aid." In that single phrase, Joseph passed on a faith stronger than memory, a confidence deeper than fear, a truth that would anchor Israel in the darkest days to come. Sometimes, the greatest legacy we leave behind is not what we built, but the hope we passed on to those who will walk after us. As the story of Joseph's life draws quietly toward its end, there is a deep, steady peace that settles over every part of it. Not a peace born from easy days, but a peace shaped through hardship, through forgiveness, through the slow, patient work of God. Tonight, as you rest, let your heart breathe in that same peace. Think of Jacob, a man who wandered, wrestled, struggled, and yet found God faithful through every season of his life. Think of Joseph, betrayed, forgotten, restored, yet never abandoned. Their stories were filled with twists and shadows, yet somehow, through all the broken pieces, God wove something whole, something beautiful. As you lie here listening, allow that truth to settle gently over your own life. You have walked through seasons that felt confusing, seasons that felt painful, moments where it was hard to see purpose or hope or light. But God has been with you. in the background, in the silence, in every breath you've taken, shaping things you could not yet see. Let your shoulders soften, let your breathing slow, and imagine God's presence resting beside you like a warm, steady light. He has carried you this far. He will carry you further still. Joseph's words echo softly across generations, across nations, across time itself. God will surely come to your aid. Those words were not only for Israel, they are for you too. Right here, right now, God will come to your aid. In the places that ache, in the fears you hold quietly inside, in the questions you don't speak out loud, in the dreams you're afraid to hope for, and in the wounds you're still healing from. Just breathe, and let that promise move gently through your heart. You are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are not walking your story alone. The same God who stood with Joseph in the pit, in the prison, and in the palace, stands with you now. So as the night grows quieter, and the world around you slows, let your thoughts soften, let your body rest, and let the peace of God settle over you like a warm blanket, like a gentle whisper, like a promise meant just for you. You are safe, you are held, and you are loved more deeply than you know. As we close tonight's story, let your heart grow quiet and your breathing soften. Heavenly Father, thank you for the lives of Jacob and Joseph, for the way you guided them, carried them, and held every moment of their journey. Tonight, I ask that you give peaceful rest to the one listening now. Calm their thoughts, ease their spirit, and cover them with your gentle presence. Let your peace settle over them like soft light. Let your love surround them like a warm blanket, and let their sleep tonight be deep, steady, and restoring. Be with them through the night, and bring them into tomorrow with renewed strength and a quiet, steady hope. Amen. Good night, and may God watch over you as you rest.